friends, your friends. Radio friends again. Radio friends again. We've got a lot to share.
Welcome to another edition of Radio Friends again. This is the 20th of June, 2025. Beautiful day here in Berlin, Connecticut. I'm Steve Parker. Nice wind coming in off the back deck. I don't know, maybe 70, 75 degrees or so. And we got a nice group of folks here. Let's say good morning and kick it off with Bill Rock. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Steve. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing? It looks like you're inside your cabin cruiser, your yacht. What have you got there?
You've seen the exterior. I'm showing you the interior one show at a time. This is the bridge. I'm very proud of it because I designed and built most of the stuff, the instrumentation on it. I mean, not the instrument itself, but the instrument panel and everything. And it's something we took a lot of different places, Block Island, Newport, etc. And it just kind of brings back some great memories.
So now, I know you're Southern Connecticut. Do you get out on the boat at all anymore?
I have a smaller boat that I use now. I have a classic Penyon. It's an 18-footer. It's actually 65 years old. I bought it when it was 10 years old, and I rebuilt that in my garage. So I had about 4 boats, and I'm down to the smaller one now. The larger one was great though, but it became a little bit difficult after a while to handle.
All right, Pete Salant, down in Norfolk.
Yeah, that's the place. Yes, terribly mediocre disc jockey, superstar production guy, and not a bad program director. Yeah, my guys used to say I was the best program director they ever worked for, except for Joe McCoy or whatever. But no, seriously, I miss what radio was. I don't miss what radio is, but I really love getting together with you radio guys.
Oh, thanks a lot, Pete. Great to see you. Chuck Kraus, Lancaster. Did I get it right?
You are absolutely right. It's a sunny day, warm. The week ahead will be in the 90s. Fortunately, our air conditioning has been serviced.
John Landry, are we down at the summer house yet?
No, we're planned on doing it, but we have a couple of things to do before we go. Probably sometime Saturday or Sunday we'll go.
All right. Well, yeah, it's beautiful. Tomorrow's first day of summer. Tonight, I guess it kicks in, but then full day tomorrow will be the first day of summer. Tracy Carmen is here from up in Massachusetts. Oh, were you in Massachusetts today?
Yeah, I'm up in Longmeadow today. Beautiful 70 degrees out. The temperature was dropping. I was watching the thermometer in the car on the way back from the gym go from 72 to 69, but the sun is out now. It was overcast before, and nice breeze out there. Kids are in the house in different places working, and life is good.
And Clark Griswold is here. Hi, Dave.
Oh, you talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, you said Clark Griswold. I
did. That's because aren't you aren't you out there? Or where are you?
I'm actually in Griswold, Connecticut. I'm outdoors, and it's a beautiful day. A little windy, and about 69, 70 degrees. And my new haircut. Just want to let everybody know. And so that's about it from here in Griswold.
Still nice to know you can get a good trim for $225 up there in Griswold.
Oh, the guy butchered me. I said, I want something to comb up front. Yeah, he gave me something to comb up front.
A little off the side.
Yeah.
Ed Bruder in New Hampshire.
Morning, gentlemen. We had quite a windstorm blew in, I guess like a lot of you did last night, and left 15,000 people in central New Hampshire without power.
Wow.
So I don't know how that will impact Motorcycle Week, but that's underway, excuse me, through this weekend.
Oh, really? That's where is that?
It's in the Lakes region, basically around Laconia.
Okay, so it was Laconia for a while, right?
Yes, it's a 10-day thing that they've been having for about 110 years.
Oh, wait, that's a crazy monster one. Bob Craig in Philly, right, Bob?
You are correct. Another session of Radio Friends again here on WRFA with the hits. Have come and gone. we had about 275,000 people without power last night. Fortunately, ours went out. I shouldn't say fortunately, but fortunately, came back after about 5 hours. Bill, I just want to mention, you might be interested in knowing too, that I had a boat at one time.
I know you're a sailboater.
No, unfortunately, it sank about 2 weeks ago in the bathtub. But
Oh, God!
Where were you- how did the duck live? Did the rubber duck live?
Yes, the duck.
Okay.
Oh, God! Oh, let's see. We got. There he is, Joe McCoy. Joe, how are you this morning? Wait, and you're Southern Connecticut. Are you Southern Connecticut?
Yeah, I am. I am Southern Connecticut, and I'm cool down here in my man cave. It's always cool down here, which is great. That's why I like to be spending my time down here. And Bob, I wanted to know if that boat you're talking about, is that the one you put baking soda in, the submarine, and it sinks, you know?
Yeah, that's what happens when you put too much baking soda in.
Remember those little frogmen that used to do the same thing with baking soda? They'd go up the top and right.
Hey,
I
Bill,
was thinking about those the other day.
you look like Dick Robinson now with the boat. Are you going to do a show from that boat?
Well, it's too bad. I just missed all that stuff with being able to use the internet because right in back of me, as a matter of fact, you can see a square box. I had a laptop on there, and the box was kind of shaded from the sunlight so you could read it. And if I was doing it just a little bit longer, I could have done it from the boat, which was one of my desires to do it live.
Right.
And I think we got Ron Pell from Cheshire. Hi, Ron. How you doing this morning?
Good, very happy. Yankees finally won a game.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, what a bad run, man. And Judge, when Aaron Judge goes into a slump, that whole team slumps, and he's still in a slump, although he went 1-for-3 last night. But fortunately, they won. 100 degrees on Monday and Tuesday, if anybody cares. 100 degrees.
Oh, my gosh. Keep it inside. Now, so Bob Marks down in Florida, is it Vero Beach?
Still in Vero Beach, Steve, where summer actually began back about 2 months ago. So I thank God for air conditioning. It really means a lot. And I had a boat, by the way. I had it for a few years. It was a Boston whaler, which is an excellent craft. My wife and I used to go out on the river. We live right near the lagoon here, Indy River Lagoon. And there were spoil islands, so we used to go out and do lunch. Sometimes we'd hook up with another couple on their boat and have champagne and treats and all. A lot of fun, but I had to sell it when I moved into my abode here, which is my villa. I used to keep my boat in my yard. I had about an acre, my beautiful Victorian home that I used to live in until 2018. But I really miss that boat. I got to tell you, it's a beautiful area to own a boat, and I can't have a boat now unless I'm willing to spend a whole bunch of money and keep it somewhere. I'm not willing to do that.
Florida is the place to have a boat.
Is Kaz still doing her experimental stuff?
Yeah, it hasn't had any fruition as yet. I'm sad to say. We keep praying for it, though. So you never know. God is good, but He's also patient. And I've got to be patient too.
Lee Gordon, good morning. Lee, where are you this morning, Lee?
Well, you don't recognize?
That's
Farrell's.
It is Farrell's.
Wants to get a good seat for August.
That's right. I finally posted the notification about the event coming on August 17th, and it's gotten quite. I posted it in the WPOP group and in the Hartford radio group and in the New England radio group, and I think a week or two ago I mentioned at one time when we were talking about Greaseman, and I was talking about this doctor who treated me, and he was more interested in Grease. He posted in the Hartford radio group about Greaseman on that post. So he's such a fanatic that he's a member of that group. So yes, it's gotten hundreds and hundreds of either likes or replies. So the place could be overrun if all the people who said they're going to come are coming. Although seems like a lot of them are fanboys and fangirls rather than actual people who were in the business. So who knows who will actually show up.
We ought to
And
pick
Steve,
a date
did you-
between now and then and see if we can get it a WPOP focus on one of these radio friends again, and we can invite some of the old POP guys, perhaps in promotion of Farrell's.
Yeah,
that might be lovely. I mean, maybe we can. You got a few of them out there. You got TJ, you got Hal, you got some other ones.
yeah. I keep meaning. I was talking about this to AJ Austin yesterday, and I've got a whole list of people, and I keep meaning to send an email to everybody saying, "Hey, here's the link. Join in and talk some radio with a bunch of Hartford radio folk."
And look at this. We got Dick caught. Dick. Oh my gosh, you've been through a lot over the last couple of weeks. How you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. Not 100% yet, but getting better, and really missed the group. I'm sorry I've missed it the last couple of weeks. I'm not going to get into the medicals because you're all probably familiar with the same stuff at one point or another. We here in sunny Westport, temp is probably going to get up to I don't know, somewhere around 90 degrees. It's going to be up to 99, they say, tomorrow. I have an air conditioning guy coming out taking a look, not because I have any problems, but I don't want to have any problems when it gets really warm. But I've missed joining you. I really have. And I have to I have to leave in about 5 minutes because I have cardiac rehab that I have to go to, which you're probably familiar with. But it's great to see everybody. And I have nothing super new to report other than the fact that radio still lives one way or the other. We just have to find out which way it is. That's all I know. But things are fine here in Westport, Connecticut.
Let's see who else we have. Oh, Lee, you're still in Florida, right?
I am sunny, mostly sunny South Florida, 86 degrees today, and the air conditioning always works because it's always running.
And you will be back for the reunion, right?
I have purchased my airline tickets, my rental car, and my hotel room for the journey. I'm gonna fly up to Boston on the Wednesday before, go up to Maine to my brother's house, and then we'll decide whether to continue on to my sister's place in New Hampshire or get together with my brother. Then coming down to Hartford, stay a couple of nights, meet up with a few of my Connecticut pals, and then
staying at the Grantmore, Lee.
You know,
rooms by the hour.
It would bring back old memories. Because,
those gel beds there are real good.
You laugh. I still know the tag inside now. Call 666-5481. 4-hour short stays start at $15. Do you know how many years I recorded that for? Byron
McClanahan made a lot of money on that account.
He did.
For 10 years, Jack Carney and I lived right up the hill behind the Grantmore. I had to drive past the Grantmore every day. I think one day we were driving up the hill, and Brad Davis lived about halfway up the hill.
Right around the corner, basically. Yeah.
One day, Jack and I we went down to get something to eat. We come back up the hill, and on the front doorstep of Brad's house, Brad and Father Nadolny we're standing there having a chat.
Oh my God! And Jack Daniels and Bagels and Lox, just nothing like it. Oh, and Dave Nagel, welcome back. How you been feeling? You and Marlene.
I'm doing all right. Just been real busy with Marlene post her spinal cord surgery, taking her to physical therapy, occupational therapy, and at this point she's learning to walk again, and we are hoping for a good recovery.
You're a good supportive husband, Dave. That's great.
Thank you for saying that. I mean, 8 years ago, 10 years ago now, almost, she did the same thing for me when I had a spinal cord injury. So it's like, how can you not want to give 150% to help the person that helped you? You know,
Sure.
Right.
God bless you. And you're at Plainville, is that where you're at?
scenic Plainville, Connecticut. Yeah, it's sunny. It's 75 degrees, headed for a high of 82 today.
Boy, oh boy. And I know, Dick, you've got to take off, but we did note that Jim Alcon lost his wife. Had she been sick for a while, Dick, or what?
I don't know the exact information on that. I haven't seen her in quite some time, but that would be my impression. She was a younger lady, a lovely, lovely lady, and it's a very sad story. And I sent him a note, and I will find out. I will hope to be able to report same on next week. But that would be my impression, yes.
Yeah, Barry mentioned earlier that he wasn't going to be able to be here because I guess he was going to the funeral. So, and then I think Shiva is what, tomorrow or Sunday, or that was also something I believe he noted on Facebook.
Yeah, the Shiva follows the funeral and then runs for a day or two following, and we're hoping to get over there to visit them at the Shiva as well. But it's a very sad, unexpected, but very sad and unfortunate situation.
Oh my gosh, yeah, so quick like that. And then just to see, you see these things come up on Facebook and like, wow, we were talking about that earlier too. It's just, it's just brutal. Oh my God. But let's see. Oh, Jim Harrington jumped on. Hi, Jim. How are you?
Hi, Steve. Good, thanks. Getting ready for the heat wave.
Oh yeah, because you're in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, we're a little bit before you guys get it, but you're gonna get it. They're talking about 100 degrees.
We had a preview yesterday, and now I guess it's going up to 100. Ron was saying next week.
Here on Monday and Tuesday, they're forecasting.
They say it's two back-to-back systems, two back-to-back heat waves. So it'll be fun.
We were talking before we did some intros here about brushes with greatness. And was it Joe? Joe and Coy was about to touch in on something, right, Joe?
I was going to tell you about Jay Black. There's a couple of funny stories.
From the Americans.
I'm sorry?
From the Jay and the Americans, right?
Yes, Jay and the Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing a concert show, fun thing, like a day at Rye Playland some years ago. And it was the hottest day of the year. I mean, it was terrible. I was going out to my car every once in a while just to turn the air conditioning on. That's how hot it was. Anyway, so we're backstage, I'm with a couple of people from the station, and we're backstage, and Jay walks in, and Jay's got this leather jacket on.
Yeah.
Huge leather jacket zipped up above his stomach. And I'm looking at him saying, Jay, what the hell are you doing with that jacket? I'll give you a T-shirt. He says, I can't, Joe. I got this big fucking gun over here, and I don't want anybody to see it. So
I can relate to that.
Yeah, you can. Here's Jay would always tell me stories every time he'd come into the radio station. I like Jay. He was a great guy. You had to have to know him to see him. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of people went to see him down at Westbury Music Fair, and we get so many letters of complaints because we give away tickets, And so people would take their kids, and Jay would be up there just, swearing half the time and singing and telling jokes. And I mean, he was funny. He really was. I mean, it wasn't a show you should bring your kids to, but anyway. So here's my favorite. So Jay, during the John Gotti trial, Jay was friends with John Gotti because he had met John backstage at Westbury, and John loved his music, and so he said to a friend that he wanted to see Jay backstage, so he came in. So Jay comes backstage. I'm sorry, John comes backstage, and Jay turns around. Guy says, "Jay, this is John Gotti." And so Jay says, "Hey, how you doing? I bet I got more hits than you do."
Oy vey.
That's my favorite. That was my favorite story
Oh my
from
God.
Jay. He was
Quick thinking.
he was he was a piece of work, and again a very funny guy. He'd tell a lot of jokes, and he was he was nice. And to radio people, I'd have to warn him a few times, when he'd come on stage and stuff. And I said, Jay, you say anything, I ain't playing your records anymore. And he no, Joe, no, I wouldn't do that to you. Okay, just as long as we
You
have
know, Joe, the amazing thing is he had a Brooklyn accent. He grew up 2 blocks away from me. He grew up on near Flatbush Avenue and the Junction, as they used to call it in Brooklyn, near Brooklyn College. And I grew up in that area too. And he had a kind of a Brooklyn accent, but then he would launch into Caramia. And he had the most amazing voice. I mean, it's like he would hit notes. Even at the end, even later in his life, when he was, in his 70s, however old he was, he still could hit those notes. And boy, what a voice!
Yeah, he could. He's you see that with a lot of singers. I mean, they have this great voice, and then when you talk to them, it's totally different. It's the Brooklynese comes back and a few other things, and but just a very funny guy. And another time I called him up, and he says, Joe, he said, I hate to tell you this, but you are on the FBI tapes now. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, well, because I went to the John Gotti trial all the time, and they're wiretapping my phone. So, you're probably on their tapes, So I just laughed. So we just kept talking and everything. But he was a piece of work, as I said, he was good to radio people and a hell of a showman.
Hey, listen, before we lose you, Dick. Well, I mean, don't mean before we lose you, but you're going on.
You have to go.
Yes. That's a better way to
mean by that, Steve.
I wanted to ask you because, and I know you got to go, but it's just a great story that you had mentioned before about Fleetwood Mac and being at WPLR. I mean, that was really, really something that I've seen the photo, but that was something to meet with those guys way back when, right?
Well, it was a true experience. I had set it up well in advance. This was 1976, I think it was, before the White Album came out, and we had a new combination, so to speak, and we had. I'm having trouble remembering, but what's her name joining? Lindsey Buckingham and
Stevie
Nicks had just joined, and we did an in-studio concert with them, and it was truly a good concert. It was interesting because Stevie and Lindsey were feeling their way into the Fleetwood Mac methodology and sound that they had, while at the same time, Fleetwood was trying to kind of evolve away from just the current sound that they had, which was a country jazzy type of sound, and into more of a California sound. And the recording session really and truly showed how hard they were working to try to work together and create, while at the same time have their own style. And because we were in a studio and there were about 100 people sitting on the floor, I mean, literally 5 feet away from them, it was a treat for them because they got an opportunity to see what it's really like when you produce a session, something that you're going to want to put out on an album. There are a number of cuts from the studio session that are on YouTube. I didn't put them on, but they've been all over the place, and it was quite an interesting evening. I was in main control, working with Rich Robinson, running the board and producing the show. And that evening, when they did the sound check at about 5 o'clock, They finished the sound check, and I took them all out to dinner. And when we came back, Christine McVie, Christine Perfect, didn't get more than 2 notes into the first song and had to stop and said this didn't sound right. And I said, yeah, Christine, you've been here long enough to know that when you sound check in an empty room and come back to play in a full room, it isn't going to sound the same. So they did another sound check, and we had to bring in cases of beer for everybody. For all I know, by the time we got through with the entire session, the entire audience was so shit-faced with the thermometer that they had a great time. But this was one of 25 studio sessions that we did, and they really and truly did well. But it turned out to be a very good session. I've done a number of panels on it, and I've got a lot of music from it that I can always play whenever there's time.
Well, I think it's amazing. Like I say, I saw the picture that you had there. I think was it outside of PLR where you took that shot?
You mean with Stevie lying on the car?
Yeah, yeah.
No, that was right outside the studio in Wallingford.
Yep, yep. I thought that was fantastic. That was great. Yeah, it's funny. We had a whole thing, and Lee, Lee Gordon. I mean, you must remember. We had that whole scene happen when we went into alternative rock on 104, where those bands just started coming back like the old days and stopping in out of nowhere, right?
Yeah, well, we had a couple of those music festivals up in Springfield at Riverside Park, and then we used to have these shows that we did at Sting. What a dump that place was! And I remember our midday guy, Race Bannon. He hated that name, but I think John Knapp gave it to him, and he was stuck with it. He was a pretty straight-laced guy, and the Sting, as you may recall, had it was connected to there was a strip club that next door that you could pass to and fro, and Race Bannon was not happy about that. He did not like being in the proximity of that. But we used to have Letters to Cleo, Boston band. It was they played so many of our shows. And I just saw yesterday John Knapp had posted something on Facebook with the singer from the band Garbage, Shirley Manson, and some of these groups played so frequently that they were like, I mean, backstage I joked that that Letters to Cleo was the Radio 104 official house band, and then the lead singer repeated the joke on the stage. So, but yeah, we had lots of music acts when that started. Mostly because Jason Steinberg just booked had these ideas for these shows, and we were able to do them.
And Jason Steinberg, the great thing about him was whenever you went out, if you were trying to pitch a new client or something, all you had to do was walk in with Jason and you went, oh, there's the format.
Yes.
Yeah. He had that long, crazy hair and looked a little bit like Kenny G.
And the funny thing is, after that, he went to a country station on Long Island. He's been there ever since.
Wow. Yeah, but great. That was like really, 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 that was one of those raw rock and roll moments in time where nobody knew where the radio station was. We didn't have any, we didn't do anything. We had no jocks. And we basically were saying that, this radio station is going to be designed by the audience. And it was really, really so exciting to see all that and see, we'd have a van pull up and a bunch of guys get out with pierced everything and their hair standing like this. Hey, we got another band stopping by. Big difference between that and Huey Lewis when he would come in. But
it was great. We got to see a lot of live music.
Yeah, we had when we had the band Weezer, and one of the guys from Weezer lived in Newington, and he would always call up the station, and the jock said, "The guy keeps calling up saying that he's River Phoenix and that he's Rivers Como, and he was and then why do we only?"
He was friends with Kevin the Afternoon Guy.
Yeah. And why do we only play Buddy Holly? And he says he lives here in Newington. He did. And
I think he went to UConn.
Yeah, he said my sister was walking the dog one day in the park, and this woman came up with a lab and said, "You know the band Weezer? Oh, that's my son." But it really was a lot of fun. But and that's the interesting thing about the business. You get to see so many people that are some of them you wish you had never met, because sometimes there's a little bit of an attitude there, but it's a lot of great ones along the way, that's for sure. And Jim Harrington has definitely had some brushes with greatness, with this being the 50th this is the 50th anniversary of Jaws this weekend. So we did an interview yesterday. Thank you, Jim. But that's but every time you tell that, I always hear different things in there. You were actually
I make them up as I go. No, I do. That was a lucky break. Thanks to your dad, I went down and participated in Jaws for 8 days when they were shooting it on Martha's Vineyard, and you bump into it. You see a lot of people. The guy Murray Hamilton. You saw Murray Hamilton, who played the mayor in Jaws. And he just seemed like a regular guy hanging around, waiting for his next, his next shot. When you needed a dressing room, I used Lorraine Gary's dressing room, who played the wife of Brody of. What's his face? The sheriff.
Roy Scheider.
Yeah.
Roy Scheider. Thank you very much.
Yep.
You're welcome.
And when I worked in New York, I bumped into people. I got to be friendly with a lot of people on the train. You realize you can't believe how many celebrities. You think of them as being chauffeured, driven into the city to perform on Broadway. You think of them as being pampered. But a lot of them, when they finished doing their performances on Broadway, used to stroll down to GCT and, take the 1105 to wherever they were going, Westport or Stamford or whatever. And you end up bumping into them and talking to them, and I had a chance to meet a lot of guys doing that. And also Paul Peterson from the Donna Reed Show. Used to take the train into New York all the time. Come to find out I guess it was a low period in his acting career, and he'd started a limo company out in L.A. and those things happen. But New York is that kind of a city, and the neat thing about New York, and I think Joe will tell you this, is nobody's really terribly impressed. Meaning, like. Whereas you might go to a smaller town and be a celebrity and everybody gathers around like it's a big thing. But in New York, it's just, there he is. I think that's why, God rest his soul, John Lennon loved New York. Because for the most part, unfortunately, there was one person who ruined it for him. But for the most part, he kind of lived his own life, when he was in New York City. And,
people in New York, you said it, Jim. People in New York, you see, stars going by every day. I mean, if you're walking down the street, and you just say, "Oh yeah, there's so much," and you don't bother them. You don't bother them. They want to do their thing, and so you kind of leave them alone, which is nice. And you're absolutely right. Any other city, they'd be mobbed.
Yep, exactly.
What I noticed about the women is that they were very attractive. That they would dress down in New York when you wouldn't recognize them.
I'll tell you one of the strangest things. That's true. One of the strangest things about celebrity. I was my very first night in Pittsburgh. I was coming down from New York State to. They put me up in a hotel in Pittsburgh, and it was raining. A miserable night. I got in late to the hotel. And it was the Pittsburgh Hilton, which is a nice hotel right across from one of the parks in Pittsburgh. Bill might know it.
And Three Rivers Park?
I get into the elevator. Pardon?
Three Rivers
Right,
Park?
well, it was the Pittsburgh Hilton right across from Point State Park.
Oh, the
And
bridge to nowhere was there. Remember
yeah,
that?
that's exactly, the bridge to nowhere was there. That's another story. But I get into the elevator, and this bald guy who comes up to my chin comes in, kind of thin, and I think I know this guy. I know it was Yul Brynner,
No.
the actor Yul Brynner. I mean, you expect to see him in New York and think nothing of it, but here he strolls into the elevator, and he didn't wait for another elevator. He could have cared less, you know. My God, the King and I together in the same elevator.
You'd expect him to be 6 feet tall.
Yeah, oh, you would, but you know, cameras do amazing things.
Yeah.
Do you remember Alan Ladd?
Yeah.
The movie Shane. You know,
Famous
Alan
one.
Ladd was so short in his contract. He if they hired an actress who was bigger than him rather, they would dig a trench. If it was a tracking shot, and if he was walking with her, she had to walk in the trench so that she didn't look bigger than him. And they would shoot a medium close up, you know. It's just Hollywood. You'd be very disappointed in how many stars are short.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise.
Robert Redford. I saw him in the Warner Building across from CBS.
Yeah.
And my God, I couldn't believe how short he was.
I know.
Mean, he must have been, I don't know, 5'3", maybe, something like that.
How about
He's
Sly
taller than
Stallone?
that. He's more like 5'9", 5'8", 5'9". Tom Cruise, notoriously a small guy.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
I have
Doesn't
to
look like 5'9" to me.
Go ahead, Dick.
I have to leave, but I will tell you one quick thing. When we started WPLR, this was around July or August of 1971. I worked out a deal with a booking agent to have promos done by various stars. Now, remember, this is 1971, so the stars that I'm talking about are kind of not aligned with what WPLR became. But they gave me the home addresses of every one of these people. So I took my cassette recorder with me and a mic, and the first person I saw was Tony Bennett at his apartment, sitting at his white grand piano as he's talking to Peggy Lee. And we're having a cup of coffee, and he's reading scripts about how wonderful WPLR is and you should listen to it. And then I went over to see Ed Sullivan in his apartment, in his hotel. And then Dick Cavett, and I think on the same day was Paul Anka as well. And I look back on that, and I think about the variety of people that we dealt with to do that, and how nice they were, how willing they were to do it. And we just ran them as promos. And then a few, maybe about a year or so later, I got into setting up appearances and performances for more difficult personalities like Don Imus and Howard Stern. It was Howard had, I think, I'm trying to remember if he was at CCC at the time, but we had a lot of fun with a lot of notables that in no way would relate to the radio station they ultimately promoted. That was the best part. Anyway, I'm going to go rehab. I'll see you guys later next week. I'll be here. Y'all have a wonderful week.
Hey, quick, Nick,
Take care.
I did talk to Jimmy Koplik for quite a while this week.
That was a great interview, by the way. Yes.
Oh, thank you. And he said he'd be willing to come on here, maybe talk to us about some different radio promotions they were involved with all those years. So maybe if you connect with him,
I will. He and I could do an hour, and you wouldn't even have a chance to say anything. There's just so much.
He talked about how much Alice Cooper loved golf, and he said when he bring him to the golf course, they couldn't tell he could never say that his guest was Alice Cooper because they wouldn't let him on the course.
How about the fact that Emerson, Lake and Palmer would perform in New Haven, stay in the Park Plaza at New Haven, which is a block away. We'd have to give them stretch limos to take them there, and they needed 3 of them because none of them would ride in the same car with each other. This is to drive a block.
Jimmy said that his son Jeremy is involved now. Does a lot of the booking, and he says his two grandsons are working over at the amphitheater in Bridgeport, and they're both like 19. And he said they won't let him book anybody under 70 years old anymore. But yeah, so if you connect with him, that'd be great if we could get him at some point in time.
Oh yeah, I've had him at the Wise Men, and maybe he and I could do a Q&A because there's just so much history. I met him in 1971. We've been close friends ever since, and probably did about 75% of the concerts he's done in Connecticut through WPLR. Just one of my closest friends. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Take care.
Thanks a lot, Dick.
Bye,
Good
Dick.
luck.
See you, Dick.
Thank you for your patience. Take care.
Rehab well.
Hey, by the way, you guys take a look on the gallery. I don't know if he's still there, but Dave is live now. It looks like he was drinking from the world's longest bottomless cup there. He just had this cup, Dave, and he was drinking from it. All of a sudden, the gallery picture changed. Sorry, I brought it. Hey, listen, somebody was mentioning something about some groups before. I don't know if any of you remember the ill-fated Boston sound, the Boston groups around 67, 68. I don't know how I remember some of these names.
Like Orpheus?
Yeah, Orpheus was one. There was a group that used to appear at the Rathskeller in Kenmore Square called the Shithans. And then there was the Ultimate Spinach. Is that
Remember them? Yeah.
You remember that? But Orpheus was a pretty good group. They had a pretty good lead.
Yes.
Another song, "Can't Find the Time."
Sure.
Yeah, the Brown
They
Arms,
had
Brown
they
Arms
had
in
a song
Houston.
called Congress Alley, and when I lived in Worcester, Congress Alley was literally behind the building I lived in, because the people from Orpheus lived in the same neighborhood and wrote the song, wrote that song about that neighborhood.
Really?
Well, Bruce Arnold came out here and did a show a few years ago, and I was. This is like one of those other opportunities I missed because my kids have the priority. And I had emailed back and forth with him before anybody knew what the internet was, because I bought the import of Orpheus's Greatest Hits, which really could have been on 245s. But, I made a comment on CompuServe or eBay, wherever it was. I think it was Amazon actually about it. And he wrote me back and we started going back and forth. And he emailed me telling me he was coming out to do a one-night show in Worcester, a reunion show with the rest of the band. They were getting them together for the one night. And as much as I wanted to go, my kid had a basketball game. And unfortunately, my kid's basketball game took priority. And it's really unfortunate because he died like a year later.
I'll bet that the reunion took place at a club that was also right down the street from where I lived, called Tammany Hall.
Probably. I could probably go back and look. I still have our emails.
Jay Giles used to play there all the time. It was the local club in Worcester on Pleasant.
Again, they did a one-night show. I missed that opportunity. The other opportunity I missed, but she's still alive, was when Spanky McFarlane was out here, because I have all sorts of sheet music that she was kind enough to sign for me. She and Stewie Scharf, who produced it, and I was supposed to have Bob Doro sign it, but he passed away before that got done. There's not a lot of artists that I would go out of my way for. Marilyn McCoo, Billy Davis, I'm friendly with, and I interviewed them, and they came out here to the Big E, surprisingly, back right before COVID.
Any of you guys know of Bob Doro that he mentioned?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know who he is. He did all those Schoolhouse Rock stuff for ABC.
That was the guy.
Brilliant guy. I mean, I wrote him and asked him if he could sign the sheet music, and he said, sure, I'd be happy to. And it was right around the time my wife passed away, so I kind of shelved it. I still have the letter from him, but I never got around. I've got an envelope full of Spanky sheet music downstairs signed by her and Stewie, who's also gone.
He was one of the few guys that recorded. He was a singer, he's a songwriter. He was a very, very unique jazz singer who started in the mid-50s. But he was one of the few people that did vocal recordings with Miles Davis. And I think there may be one or two people, and Miles really loved him a lot. I had a chance to get him on my show at one time. And like you said, Tracy, he was just a really super guy. He was like in his 90s when he passed away, and he was still performing up at a place north of here called the Deerhead Inn.
I was going to say, live down by you somewhere.
Yeah, he was up in the Poconos, a unique character, though. I mean, he was of another world sometimes, but but he was a big part of that Spanky and Our Gang group. And he also wrote "Give a Damn." Remember that number they had?
Oh, absolutely. The one that was banned in most cities.
I don't know why it would be banned. I mean, the song told the truth.
Maybe the word "damn."
Right, the damn.
Yeah.
While we've got both of them here, both Pat and Chuck Kraus. You guys, I mean, with all the years that you did what you did you find that there were some politicians that were more approachable than other ones? I'd be kind of curious about that. Like when you went to press conferences and stuff, were there guys that were generous with their time, or what?
Well, I was going to address a brush with greatness, and since Pat is here, we've got two news people. I'm going to take you back to 1985. Kitty Dukakis, Mike's wife, was a very soft-hearted person, and she went over to visit Southeast Asian and refugee camps, and she met a Cambodian teenager named Hoot Pick, and she came back to Massachusetts and started pulling strings to get him brought to the United States, and she was successful. And so they were going to have a reunion at LaGuardia Airport. And so some news people from Boston went down there. I went down, as did a friendly competitor from WBZ, Listo Fisher. And so we did all the thing with the microphones and the cameras and all. And Listo and I went to a bank of telephones over near where the shuttle passengers would come out. And so we wrote our stories and we called in and we fed the sound and so on. And we started seeing people coming in from the shuttle. So I quick got out of the way, left my notebook behind. And so a few seconds later, I hear this German inflected voice say, "Does this belong to you?" And well, yes, thank you very much. And Listo is across the way saying, "Did you see who that was?" It was Henry Kissinger.
Wow. Wow.
Now, what about you, Pat? I mean, you've met between television and radio. You've probably met quite a few along your way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just lots of folks. But you ask about who was approachable. It was more who are the people who are not approachable that come to mind, and the folks who would sort of shut you off. I mean, they're in their own world. One. By the way, Sammy Davis, who came in for the golf tournament, all the time for the GHO, was actually very generous with his time, and I got to sit down for long periods of time with him because at Channel 3 we would have him in there before the tournament. We'd do long form interviews and whatnot. But one thing that is sort of a funny encounter was interviewing Hal Holbrook at one point when he was doing the one-man show, and he would go out and I remember saying to him, how is it getting into another character, and how deeply you really have to research all of this? And the guy looks at me and says, "I'm an actor. Somebody else writes the lines, I memorize the lines, I give the show." And I thought, how shallow. I'm sorry. I mean, wouldn't you think, like, I'm trying to get inside this character and really be able to carry that forward, what kind of a person they were? Nope, I just do my lines,
Yeah, no, there was what was it? Dustin Hoffman, I think, was talking to Sir Laurence Olivier when they were working on Marathon Man, and he was talking about Dustin Hoffman was talking about method acting and all this kind of stuff and everything, and he said to Sir Laurence Olivier, "So what do you do?" He goes, "I act." That was it. That's all he said. Oh God. Yeah, I've been listening to this wonderful book, very fascinating. It's about a 15-hour listen, but it's Tom Selleck. Oh my God, when you listen to his career. But one of the stories he told about in there was meeting Mae West and saying, when she came back out after 25 years or so and did Myra Breckenridge. And she said, I mean, she was the nicest, most, like, nothing like her characters at all. But when she did turn into the character, like, he had to go to her house and he was auditioning. And he went up to her house, and she's standing by her piano and said, okay, come over here now. Now put your hands on my hip. And then she goes, now spread your legs. Spread them really far. And she goes, okay, he'll do. All she wanted to do was make sure that she could get him to be down to her height. And because he was so tall. But yeah, it's interesting to listen to all the stories he has to tell and how many great people that he had worked with. But yeah, it's a really, really, really good book about his whole life and how he didn't even plan on being an actor. That just came along, I think, with modeling or something else. Somebody in college or something said something to him. But yeah, Myra Breckenridge. Yeah, that was really, really, really something. Now,
could I jump back in?
Sure. I'm sorry.
We're talking about Pat Sheehan.
Yep.
Pat, I remember one day, maybe around 70 or 71, talk about difficult people. I remember you having a set to with Senator Thomas Dodd. He was a very prickly person.
Yes, he was.
And you and he were not seeing eye to eye. I don't remember the details, but I suspect you may remember him.
Chuck, the interesting thing, I have been working at WINF doing talk shows, and I'm going to forget the fellow's last name, Jim, whoever it was who wrote the book and had blown the whistle on Senator Dodd's misuse of travel funds. He was riding on United Technology or Pratt & Whitney's airplane back and forth, but he was collecting payments for commercial airlines or airfares. So I had booked Jim and his wife, the husband and wife or boyfriend, girlfriend, who were the whistleblowers, to come on and do our show. And I got a call one afternoon from a very, if I said inebriated, but I do believe he was inebriated at the time, Senator Tom Dodd, who called up and basically said, if you have that guy on your show, you will never work again. And it was one of those threats that obviously I was a young guy. I'm, like, wow, okay. And I went in to see the boss and tell the boss that this had happened and how I don't want to cancel the program. And he said, no, you gotta keep with the show and whatnot. About 15 minutes later, the boss, Sid Walton, was the owner of the station at the time. Maybe some of you remember.
Okay.
And I got this call that said, cancel that show because Matt Moriarty, who was a big campaign donor to Tom Dodd at the time, owned the biggest car dealership in Manchester at the time, and apparently had made a phone call saying to the station that he would be withdrawing all of his advertising and would no longer be a friend to the station. So Senator Dodd and I had a really difficult relationship from then on. I think he remembered me because I then left and I went into television, and I had then went over to DRC and I was doing that. So I had an ongoing relationship. The interesting thing is that over the years, Chris Dodd and I have been long, close friends, traveled together over to the Middle East, and went up into Beirut when there was ongoing warfare going on. And Chris and I ended up being good friends for many, many years. But Tom Dodd was a difficult guy. And I remember covering what you may be referring to was when he ran as an independent. He said he was going to, stand up for himself, and he after he had been censured, and the party had turned against him at that point. But he was very prickly, and it just felt the world had come down on him unfairly. And it was just a difficult relationship. But it happened because of that incident. I have no doubt about it. That colored everything.
Yeah, I know. And Chris was such a nice guy. And I can remember when Dave and I just started doing the show at POP. We'd only been on a short time, and we got a call from his office and said, Senator understands that you've got a radio program there and he'd like to be on. And, Chris seemed like the type of guy that wouldn't miss an opportunity no matter how many people. He wanted to have good relationships with the media in general, you know, whether you were a smaller station or a bigger station, TV, radio, whatever. But right away, you know, somebody called in and couldn't have been nicer. You know, just
he also had substance in what he did, which you know, we could compare to our still current Senator Blumenthal, who shows up for garage door openings. But you know, I've never been able to understand the attractiveness of his political support that he has, and he would win by huge margins and whatnot. And it's sort of a shame that we ended up having someone who, I mean, everybody knows in the political world that basically he's an attention hog. I guess they all are in some ways, because they're all running for office all the time. But when we had Joe Lieberman and Chris Dodd in the Senate, it gave a lot of support to real substance in terms of what it was that they believed in, how they presented themselves. And unlike Mr. Blumenthal, who spent so many times, you know, with high profile, I'm going to sue these people into oblivion, blah, blah, blah. And then you'd never hear a thing later because the cases would get dropped or maybe settled or somebody else took it over. But, you know, there's such a difference in the way that the Dodd father and son. I've just always, I felt bad for Chris because of living through what he did. And he always felt like he wanted to get his father's image restored. Of course, now out at UConn, we have the Dodd Center out there, the repository of a lot of the work that he did from Senator Tom Dodd from the Nuremberg trials and whatnot. I mean, he really was a great senator for a long period of time, but one of those guys who stayed too long.
Pat, I'm curious, did you ever have an opportunity to talk with Chris about the difficult relationship you had with his father?
Yeah, but that was as he was when he became a congressman. And if you remember, both Toby Moffett and Chris Dodd became congressmen at the same time, and there was this rivalry which one was going to go for the Senate seat first and whatnot. And so yeah, I got involved in a lot of late night martinis and discussions with Chris over the years. He felt that his father had not been properly respected for the earlier part of his career, and yeah, I mean it's you know, family thing. I mean it's something that I don't know how you live as the son of somebody who's that famous, and you have to live your life in your own way. So I'm happy to see all the success that Chris had, and even after his Senate service.
Well, Pat, how are they ever going to get term limits for these guys when they're the ones that would have to vote for it?
Got me. Hey, look, I'm a new councilman in Texas, you know, so be careful. I'm a politician now, so you know, it's funny. I actually was with a woman 3 days ago, who is in the Texas legislature, and she said I was always a proponent of term limits until I found out how much institutional memory you need to have to really get anything accomplished once you're in a legislative body. You know, and all of us who say, "Oh no, we ought to have term limits," I've always been a big proponent for that. They want to see the turnover, but the problem is that the bureaucracy doesn't change. You know, the staff people are there for multiple terms, serving different folks who come and go, maybe by, you know, who gets elected. But the bureaucracy doesn't have term limits, so you need to have people who understand how the machinery of government works. So no, I don't see it happening particularly soon, and it's just when you see the average age now of people in public office in the United States Senate in particular, you know, I mean, I think somebody said there were like 3 people who were hospitalized and or died somehow, you know, each term because you get these people who are into their 80s and 90s, and nobody wants to give up power. And it's not just the person, it's the family of that person, meaning the administrative family that surrounds them, and all the supporters and donors and whatnot who want access to power.
Well, it's funny what you say about Blumenthal, though. I mean, it really is amazing. That's a guy that always brings the media. They follow him around like mad, you know, and even, you know, He is. I mean, again, when Dave and I were doing the thing at POP, and hey, when can we get on? These guys just couldn't wait. But the best one,
I respect very much so the infrastructure that he has around him to know what all the events that are going on, to schedule all of that. When I was at my office for Stiefel right out at State House Square, he was on the floor below us, and I'd see him frequently in the building with his drivers. He and a driver, but I mean, he would spend full days just going from event to event to event to event. And the amazing thing to me is that how the press, and this is part of why I'm disappointed with my profession. You would take this stuff seriously. That, oh my gosh, look, Dick Blumenthal was here today. Let's put that on the front page of the newspaper. It's like, my God, he's having the senator show up is a really nice thing, and everybody knows that. But he and his staff, whoever does all that scheduling, pretty amazing. But it comes from him, and what he prioritizes in the way that he connects with the voters, and he clearly does. He gets great support out there. Just anyway, now we have Chris Murphy to deal with, and he's now running for president. So we'll see what happens there too.
I remember in POP when it was all news, every single day in the newsroom, Blumenthal would call in with something to say about some. I mean, he was completely accessible, which is something that news people appreciate.
Yep.
And they take advantage of it. And so they knew if there was a topic of any kind, they would never be without commentary from somebody important, because they could always he was not the only one, but he was but it stuck out in my mind that anytime I would walk into the newsroom, there would always be something available. They didn't always have to use it, but there was always something from Blumenthal because he was always available to them.
Did you say he was running, Pat?
Chris Murphy.
No, who did you say was running for president?
No, Chris Murphy.
Oh, okay, yeah. Has he made that official?
No.
It's just kind of, that's
no, I mean,
he's
doing everything he can to raise his profile now, and he's become, I'm going to say, he's become way more aggressively political in terms of trying to find where the sweet spot is that remains in the Democratic Party to be able to advance himself. I think it's clearly he's been. I mean, it's all the guy's ever done in his life is public office. So I mean,
he walks across Connecticut a lot, but he misses a lot of driveways when he's walking. I could just say I know one of the things I used to have a guy on the show with me all the time that was affected by Agent Orange, and he was always trying to get some laws passed that would recognize some different diseases they said that weren't connected to Agent Orange. Right. And the guy, he had Agent Orange, and he would travel all over the country, and he actually rode an orange motorcycle, and really was out there all the time pushing for that. And Blumenthal, and they were definitely, could tell they were not in the same world, but Blumenthal took him down to see the, excuse me, I think it was the State of the Union speech with Trump #1, and basically afterwards, he was the only guest that Blumenthal had with him, and then he went back to his office and made calls to different veterans for him in front of him. And when they were going to dedicate the Agent Orange monument out in Andover or something, he said to Blumenthal, he said, there's going to be a lot of our Vietnam veterans there, and they may be a little bit concerned. And he goes, it's okay, I won't be there. I mean, it was simple as that. If that's what you want, okay, but he did. My favorite though was when I was at the Connecticut Humane Society. I've been on their board for years, and we were doing a press conference, and him and Tong both showed up, and right away Blumenthal goes, "Where's the podium?" And there was no podium. He gets his phone, and within 10 minutes, a guy shows up carrying his podium with him. I said, he's got a podium guy. That's pretty good when you can carry a podium guy with you. Oh, my God.
Well, I mean, it's great constituent service. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It's the use of the media and to Lee's point, it's a symbiotic relationship between news people and public officials. We need each other. We need to have access to them. They need to have access to their constituency. And the question is, when somebody's available to be able to give you a statement on just about anything, and usually it's apple pie and motherhood and things like that, all the wonderful things. But it's, can you get a hold of them on a difficult subject? And that's where somebody like Chris Dodd or Joe Lieberman was incredibly available, even on difficult questions. A lot of the folks that I dealt with over the years were very cautious about stepping into something that they didn't know what the reaction would be, so they won't say anything. And it's interesting to watch what the silence is from some office holders who seem to be available all the time, except when you really need to get something. I'm sure Chuck ran into the same kind of a thing. It's who you can get a hold of, and I mean, let's face it, we had our needs in terms of our newscasts and getting sound bites and getting the right kind of a setup and whatnot. But so somebody who can be out there campaigning all the time, and that's sort of the tough part of anybody who's in office. As soon as you get elected, the first thing you're doing is starting your re-election campaign, and the fundraising and everything else that goes into that is pretty obscene.
Ella Grasso was probably pretty approachable, wasn't she?
She was, Ella was a very different person in person than she was publicly. Had a heck of a mouth on her. I mean, she was approachable and likable in person. There's no doubt about that. But she was very different in the way that she presented herself sometimes than what she was in the back room.
What about, were either one of you guys around for Dempsey?
Oh yeah, I actually, John Dempsey, he's talking about Chuck. John Dempsey, one of my favorite memories is the day after Tom Meskel had been elected governor. It was John Dempsey was leaving office at that point, and there had been rules. He had a chief of staff named Keith Shonrock. There were rules that you would have a daily opportunity to speak to the governor. And he was accessible in that sense, but you could not have a recording device. This was back in the day. It was done for the newspaper people, so it was all pencil and pad. So you couldn't come in with a recording device. I happened to have stayed up all night the night that the election night had occurred, and I went into the state capitol the next morning, and John Dempsey walked out and he said, "Oh, come on in and bring that thing." And it was my God, Wollensack? I don't know. It was one of these huge recorders that I had. And I got to actually sit down and do an interview with him. And it was the first time that Keith Shonrock stood off at the side and said, "We never do this, we never allow a recording device in here." But it was just a nice moment. But Dempsey, Billy O'Neill, I mean, these were slap of your back, remember your wife's name and your kids' names, just retail politician, very approachable kind of guy. Not deep, but very approachable.
You mentioned John Dempsey. When I went to WPOP as news director, I designated one of my guys to be our state capitol guy, Randy Brock. And so Randy would go over and interview Dempsey. One of the most interesting things, John Dempsey, maybe he was just blowing smoke, but he told Randy that WPOP's 12 o'clock news was what he made sure to listen to. We had 4 people in the news department, tried to do a good job, but, considering TIC and various others, to have the governor say something like that about us made us feel very good.
I found that with Lieberman, that Lieberman could just morph into whatever the surroundings were with him, and he had a tremendous way for listening. He would when he'd be on a radio program or something, he was right there, and whether he was with the guys at PLR or TIC or POP. Lieberman really was there. He was present, I think, when you were speaking with him. That's what I always seemed to notice about him. And again, just a great sense of humor.
Chuck, you mentioned Randy Brock. I think, and Lee will be able to correct me, but I think Randy Brock and his son came from Pennsylvania for one of the very first Hartford radio reunions we had. Randy's real name is Dennis Brocklehurst, and he was still working at a small station in someplace in Pennsylvania at that time.
All right. Randy's his name was Dennis Harmon Brocklehurst, and he was from Jamestown. I believe he calls his son Moose.
Yes, I think that's right. Lee, do you remember any of this?
Yeah, I think he came to like one of the early reunions we had at the Pump House gallery
Bikini Park, right?
In Bushnell Park.
Yep. Bushnell Park.
Yeah.
And it might have been the first or the first or second one, and I lost track of him. I have no idea. Is he even still living?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. I have a feeling he may have left us, but I just because I used to maintain a big long mailing list, and he was one of the people who disappeared off the list, and I was never able to track him down after that.
Last place I knew he worked was WNPV in Lansdale, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And he was last known to be living in Lexington, PA in 2020.
Yeah, somewhere along the way, he also worked for the All News radio station in Wilmington, but I don't know for how long.
He also worked at WFIL in Philadelphia for a while.
There's a story there.
Yeah.
When Randy left POP to go to Philadelphia, and I guess it was to FIL, and that was a natural progression. Some years later, I was working for WCBS New York on one floor of the Black Rock building, and I knew that Bill Winters was doing a jock show up on CBS FM on another floor. So I went up to visit him, and we got to talking about Randy. And apparently somebody at the station where Randy was working wanted to save some money, and they told Bill to go down and tell Randy he wasn't cutting it and they're going to let him go. And Bill said, "No, he's doing a great job. I will not do that." So he called in sick the day that they break the news to Randy, and I guess that was classy. Also, while I was at WCBS, spent a lot of time driving around. Randy had been out of radio for some period of time, and he showed up and he drove around with me as I was covering my stories. He had worked as a department store Santa, and he said that he learned more about human nature by being a department store Santa than he ever learned being a newscaster.
Well, unbelievable. All right, well, listen, guys, again, I invite you all to stay backstage. I'm going to have to get out of here because I know Dave's got to do. Dave left. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
There was somebody in the background doing the lawn. I don't know if you saw that.
I think it's Dave's wife.
Take a break to do the landscaping.
I think that's Dave's wife on the mower.
Oh, okay.
You don't want to get up, but you don't want to get Mary Lou upset at all. That's not going to be a good thing. But wow, some great comments. Yeah, so guys, hang around if you can. I just want to thank everybody as we go along. Bill Rock, Pete Salant. We've also got Chuck Krause here, John Landry, Tracy Carmen, Joe McCoy, Bob Craig, Ron Pell, Bob Marks, Lee Gordon, Dick Call, Dave Nagel, Jim Harrington, Pat Sheehan, and I think, did I get everybody? I think I covered everybody there. I try to hit everybody. And also, I want to remind all of you to please support the Broadcasters Foundation of America. At least check it out. Go online if you ever need any help or if you ever trying to help somebody else out. There's a good place to check in because the brotherhood and sisterhood take really, really good care of each other. And it really matters a lot. So try to check them out if you can. And also, let's not forget, we got the big reunion coming up on August 17th, which is a Sunday, at Farrell's in Portland. I got to call Art today and let him know that we're coming in. And it's just a great time. You know, I mean, it's laid back. You know, hopefully you'll see some friends there and exchange some phone numbers and emails and stuff, and be able to rekindle some friendships and some relationships. And it'll start at 1:00 in the afternoon on Sunday, August 17th, and it goes until whenever you want to stop. It's okay. So it's come and go. If you got to come in at 3:00, I know Pat will be flying in from Texas. We're excited about. Are you going to be up here then, Pat?
I am in the Shire today.
Oh, really?
Yes, I with Mr. Pell. We're back in Cheshire at least for a week.
Okay.
And then back to Texas.
Well, if you can get back up in August,
I'll be here.
If not, and we appreciate the fact that you're able to be here with us and add a touch of credibility between you and Chuck. We really appreciate it. Go ahead, Pete.
I'm flying up from Norfolk.
You're flying up from Norfolk.
Yep.
You bringing anybody else with you?
No, but I think I'm encouraging people to come. But I will be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Well, hopefully Danny Lyons is coming too.
Oh, he's coming.
Yep. He had a good time. Yeah. Spread the word if you can. I think I haven't seen Joe Connolly in a while, so maybe if either one of you guys or you or Pat, I know you talk to him from time to time. And I know he enjoyed himself the last time he came up, so we can do that. Jim Harrington and Bob Craig, you guys are coming in together. You're going to ride together, right?
Is that, I don't know, is that true? Oops.
That's how rumors start.
This is how we go. Well, it's funny when you live in Connecticut, everybody's around the corner, and I understand you guys have a pretty good corner in different places in Pennsylvania that you live. But,
I'm 6 hours from Bob.
That's right. Yeah, that's a long ride down the road.
It's almost the same amount of time as it takes to get here.
It takes 4 hours, about 4.5 hours to drive up from Philly to New Haven or even Hartford on a good day. So
if you can make it, please do. And if there's anybody that, get the word out there, especially for you guys that have different people that you think, or send me a note if you want us to try to find somebody to be on one of the programs, whether they're into business or connected with the business, that'd be great. So we're going to get out of here. Again, please feel free to hang out. And I'm just going to stop the recording so we can clean this up a little bit. I'm Steve Parker here in Berlin, Connecticut. And we'll catch you next time on the next edition of Radio Friends Again.
Your friends, Radio Friends Again. Radio Friends Again.